Good morning, everyone. Everybody doesn't look that excited. Yeah, there are a couple people. I said everybody. Everybody doesn't look to be excited. It's Thursday morning. We're going to be wrapping up today. I'm sure no one's going to be in the office tomorrow. Just to give you a heads up, I actually record these presentations when I can, and we had technical problems yesterday, but I record them. And if you stop and see me after, and give me your card, I will email you. It'll be like a webinar, so you'll get the audio and the slides together, so you'll be able to get it. And I'll send you a video clip, a YouTube clip of the session, so you can reference that or show it to whomever. So I'm Mickey Baines, and we're going to be talking about student personas today. That's okay. It could be a little louder. Just pull it really hard. So that's okay. So today we're going to cover student personas, talk a little bit about how to create them, what they mean, and how to really implement them into your marketing and recruitment. I'm a consultant. I used to work at a four-year school in Pennsylvania, Albright College in Reading, and I'll actually reference them and show you some of the stuff we did several years ago when I was still there. I've been consulting now for 5 years. When I left there, I started consulting. When I began consulting, I was doing exclusively adult grad programs. I cover a little bit of community college stuff and some traditional admission stuff now as well. But still, the majority of what I do is in the grad and adult world. So we're going to define personas. We're going to look at 3 different persona types, sample ones that I've used or used similar ones too in the past. We're going to talk about how to apply them to the media channels and recruitment. And we'll see how we can use them in some emails, and then I'm going to answer questions. Okay, we have 45 minutes, right? So I can't go as deep as I'd love to. I've worked with schools on these, and we spent 2 or 3 days together just sitting and writing and mapping out how to use personas. So we're going to try to do all of that in 45 minutes, or as much of that as we can. Okay. So first, I want to be sure we're on the same page. We understand when I talk about personas, what that is to you is the same as what it is to me. Persona is a semi-fictional representation of your ideal students based on real data, not just assumptions. We look at behaviors, we look at demographics, we look at their motivations, and we develop an educated understanding, writing out a story about who they are. And then we take those personas and we will use them by inserting them into our ad content, our web content, our email content, and even in the phone calls that our recruitment teams make as they're reaching out to prospective students. Oh, we just finished. I'm sorry. We just wrapped up. I'm sorry. Just kidding. Yes, that's okay. All right. So let me just start. Before I go beyond this, I won't say start, but before I go beyond this, how many people are using some form of personas? 1. You kind of raise that arm, but not all the way. I want to say we are. We're not there yet. Anyone else? Okay. How many people before seeing this description had no idea really what a persona was? It's okay. Okay. That's okay. All right. So, why are they important? To me, they're incredibly important. The way we buy things on the web today, Amazon and eBay or Craigslist, if you use Craigslist, all of that has changed. Technology has impacted the way we interact and with the way we engage with people on the web. And what those companies have learned about us through the data they collect is helping direct and evolve how they sell and how they improve their performance. That has created within us expectations of what happens on the web. So as a very basic example, if I go to Amazon and make a purchase, I expect by the time I click the next tab over to go to my email, but the email is already waiting for me to say, we've confirmed your purchase. I expect to get some type of notice to say, your item is shipped. I expect to be able to click and track my shipping. We have expectations now. And so even though we may not look at our enrollment programs as a purchase someone is making, we use that idea of, this is what I did on Amazon, I have expectations. We have expectations on other things that we do online because of that. And our students have expectations. But the way we recruit in higher ed hasn't quite evolved as much as technology has evolved how they sell things. Personas kind of flip that a little bit. Personas help force us to start thinking about our students and their personal stories and their personal lives and what they're doing, and it helps us to come up with different ways to engage. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about when I was at Albright College and go back a few years. We had 440 adult students. We had 280 applications and 560 inquiries that year for 2007 and 8. We had 7 locations across southeastern, south central and southeastern PA. And in 2007, I took over the program in 2005, and 2007-8 is when we really began redoing our entire marketing campaign. And I didn't even call them personas at the time. I didn't know what a persona was. I just said, you know what? We're going to create buckets. That's what I call them. I call them buckets. And the reason I created buckets was because at the time, I was really the only person at the college who understood all of the different stories, all of our different students' backgrounds and lives. They all had to submit an essay with their application, and I was the person who read all of those essays. And what I found in so many of the essays was the students, as they were writing it, they were talking about what they felt was their unique story about what got them where they are right now and what they want to be able to achieve. But in reality, they weren't unique stories. I realized I could take them and start kind of generalizing and putting them in buckets because we had different kind of backgrounds that kind of led them to where they were that just naturally put them in the same bucket. And so I decided, well, let's use that as our content for our marketing. And the goal was, regardless of who you were, if you're a prospective student, when you're on our website or if you see one of our ads, you can find yourself in the students that you see. And it was taking that testimonial type of campaign, which is still prevalent today, but it was taking it to a different level. And I didn't just want to talk about all the basic stuff you still see. I wanted to go a little deeper, and so you might see someone who didn't really connect with you, but if you looked and saw enough impressions, you would come across someone who did connect with you, that had your life story, your background, the reason why you are where you are today. 2008 and 9, we were up to 478 students, 9% increase. We had 293 applications, only 5%, but our inquiries were up 15%. Next year, 545 students, 357 applications, 908 inquiries. Right? And that's when I left. Started November, well, that was 9-10. I left fall of the next semester, November of 2010. But I'm still close with them, and this is as of 2013, they're up to 820 students. And they were just under 1,000 students at this point. This was the first year. 2015-16 was the first year they've had a decline in 11 years. It was just a little decline. And so majority of this came after we developed personas. Now, if you attended my session yesterday, and I think there are a couple of people here in the room that did, we had a whole bunch of other changes we were doing. They began 2 years before we changed our marketing plan, but this was the marketing side of it. If you didn't attend yesterday, boy, you missed out on a great session. That's what I heard. Okay, points of clarifications. You really have to look at your data a little bit to understand personas. You can't just make assumptions. If you make assumptions and you create a lot of material based on a persona that's a faulty persona, you're going to generate nothing from it. In fact, you might turn people away. So you can't just weave facts together. You've got to be sure that you collect information and use that persona as a real person, right? Questions before I keep going? Please, if I'm going through it, I'm skimming over something that doesn't make sense to you, stop me, ask me, do whatever it takes to get my attention. Okay. So, what are some of the things that might be important to collect and know about someone to develop persona? I went with age first. What else? Give me some ideas. That's too many. Slow down. I got a clicker. I'm not clicking until I get some ideas. It's okay. There are no wrong ideas. Well, they might be wrong, but that's okay. Gender. Current career. Educational background. What else? Location. Have you seen these slides? Because it's pretty good. What else? Gender. Employment status. Location. Major. Motivations. Hurdles. Objections. Activities. That's more for trad programs. Job employment is more for adult programs. Or family status. Educational history. What's most important of all these for personas specifically? What's most important? Motivations. Anybody think anything else? Okay. Motivation is number one. I like the objection to hurdles. Those are actually very important. I use the objection to hurdles more in the recruitment side. Motivation is on the marketing side. Okay. Why motivations? So I'm just going to go right in and show you. This is a sample persona. I don't know if you can read it in the back. I'll just read it out loud just in case. Amber's a 42-year-old married mother of 2 children, ages 13 and 10. She has worked for the same company for 18 years and currently serves as the manager of a call center for a large local company. Amber's interested in earning her MBA because she can't advance any further in her career at the company without it. She wants to know about the types of loans available for graduate students because the funding her employer provides to support her education will not cover the complete cost. She is also concerned about the time it takes to finish the degree. She has a promotion available to her in 2 years, but she has to have the degree prior so she can get the promotion. That is a sample persona. What's her why? Why is she motivated to get a degree? Advance in her career. What's the problem with that persona? No, what's wrong with the persona? No, we know it's what she wants, but what's wrong with this persona? There's something wrong with this persona. Don't look too closely. Think bigger. Think big picture. What's wrong with it? No, it's not about her motivation. I'm just saying the persona itself. What's wrong? What do we know about Amber when she inquires? Do we know how many children she has? Do we know how old her kids are? Do we know where she currently works? Do we know what her job is? Right? So while this is a great description, what we have to acknowledge is, at what point do I know this to actually help me recruit her? If I want to use this as a way to advertise and recruit someone, at what point do I know all of this stuff about her? Right? We've got to keep that in mind too, because this is a great persona. But before I can actually use it in my recruitment, I got to know a little bit about Amber first to know that she fits this. Okay? So what we have to do, we have to think about what is it I can ask her when she inquires that might help me a little bit. Does anybody have any type of special questions that might help you know about someone, know something about them on your inquiry form or request info form? Nobody? So one of the things I do for my company is I do a secret shopper study every year. And we inquire and see how schools recruit for 6 weeks. We follow them. This year we did 100. In fact, we just started and we've only inquired with 60 of the 100. The next 40 have to come next week. And they're all adult and grad programs. And one of the things we look at, I don't know, tons and tons of stuff. I look at emails. There's probably about 17 columns of data we track in email. About, from the subject line length to number of words in the email, how many graphics in the email, who's the email from, is it a name, is it a department, is it a university name? All this stuff we track. Another thing we track is inquiry forms. I like to look to see how many questions schools have on their inquiry forms. I could probably do an hour webinar just on inquiry forms. But what's important about inquiry forms to understand is that in form submission, whether it's higher ed or, I don't know, pick any company you're looking to buy something from, request more information. The number of fields matters because the more fields you have, the lower your submission rate becomes. And what we know is the magic sweet spot in form submission fields is right around between 8 and 10. The problem we have in higher education is 10 would be like a bare bones minimum for most schools because many schools are asking in the 20s. It's almost as long as, I've had inquiry forms as long as an application. I had one, I was working with the school once this past spring, and I was filling out their inquiry form. I was looking at their inquiry form, and I was like, oh, there's like 7 questions. I love this form. And then I went to go hit submit, And it actually wasn't a submit button. It said next. I'm like, oh, hit next. And so it took me to screen 2, which had like another 8 fields on it. And then I had to hit next again. And there were 4 screens to the inquiry form. So problem number 1, inquiry form. But what I also rarely see, and this is something we track, is if a school is asking any type of motivational type question on their inquiry form. That's critical for you for personas. It's going to be kind of hard to use them in your recruitment if you don't know anything motivational about the student. And there might be other ways to capture it, but you can jump on board, especially as we now have more technology like CRMs that are automating messages. Those are much more engaging and much more effective if they're customized. And you need the motivation. Okay?
How would you do that?
I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you a question. Right? And I'll give you other examples. All right? So does anyone capture any type of motivation on their inquiry form currently? No. Okay. Here's one right there. Which best describes your reasons for earning a degree with us? Right? That's one. I've also, this one, here's a question I use, but it's not just for personas. This is for other purposes. But I might ask a question like, which of the following questions is most important to you as you're considering where to enroll? I've had a statement that just says, I am, with a colon, and then it says, select the best fit, and then I give some options, some statements, and let them pick. So here's a shorter description. I've hit a ceiling at work and cannot advance further without a degree. That'd be a shorter way to describe Amber. I'm trying to set an example for my children to show the value of an education. That's what I call Family Felicia. I want to change careers and need a degree to help get my foot in the door. I just call him changing Cedric. Right? So Amber and Cedric are similar, but those are 2 different motivations. Okay. Those are some sample. Do those make sense? So I'm just giving you a couple, just to show you the difference on how I might do this with trad programs. But so ambitious Amber as a trad student might be you have a strong academic program and a discipline that will help me prepare for graduate work. Boom, we know somebody wants to go to grad school right away. I want to stay local to keep my costs low. I'm unsure what I want to major in college, right? So with Amber, we know her primary motivation is to advance in her career or work or to become a doctor. That's on the, that's the trad side, right? Right? Did I leave that out? I may have deleted the wrong slide, right? Okay. Oh, that's both. How might Amber's initial email, so this is an important one. How might Amber's initial email from the program or her recruitment person differ from an email to Cedric? If I wanted to talk about their motivation, how would I differentiate that? Think about it. Cedric wants to change careers. Amber wants to advance in hers. Any ideas? This is a tough question. I'm sorry, what's that? Including that language in there, moving up in career, advancing. Those types of words are going to be important.
I think Cedric will be more open because he's kind of opening up his life options.
Mm-hmm.
He's a little bit more kind of flexible compared to Amber. She's a little bit more narrow focused. She wants to know the debt, how much she's going to be making.
Yep.
She's already planning out like.
And when you know the difference, you can be a little more direct in the communication. So it's not that you don't email Cedric to talk about cost and time. It's just what I say about cost or time will be different. And that's where I segment my emails. I don't just segment because you're an MBA person versus an MED person. I can. And I can have personas for each of those programs if I really want. But I'm segmenting first on motivation. The problem I find if you segment just on the major or something like that you go into very specific information about the major in an email that has the exact same text as what's on your website. And that's where it gets really boring, especially if you want them to reply to your admission counselors. Right? This is a real email, and I tried to change it. Well, I did change it to pull the school's name out, not to list the school's name. And I think there's only like that. That's the only way I've really changed it. It's an email I got last week, so it's new. Amber, thank you for your interest. Don't read that. Sorry, you can't read that part. Yeah, good. So before I read it, what's wrong with this email? Thank you. Right? Too long. Woo! I had to shrink it a little bit to fit on the screen. By the way. Yep. So thank you for interest in this program. Here are some next steps in the application process for you. Submit the Awesome University application. Have you taken college courses before? If so, all right, let's stop there because that's when they would have already finished and stopped reading. They've already deleted this email at this point. By the way, if this person really wanted to apply, wouldn't they have done that rather than fill out an inquiry form? Right? Goes into financial aid links. And so one of the things I get from schools is, well, I'd love to have a nice long comp plan that has all these messages, but I don't have enough content to send out. Well, that's one email, that's two emails. I've got like 4 emails right here. We can break that up, and that's 4 emails. Right? So if I wanted to email Amber, and I know who Amber is, here's an email that I might send, and I just typed this one up. Amber, I'm your enrollment advisor for Awesome U. I want to set aside 10 to 15 minutes so we can discuss your career path and determine how you can best achieve the next position. Have you seen the list of career moves from our other business administration grads? Does 12:30 this afternoon work for you? Thank you. I've worked with Sherry. Sherry, that's not exactly what your first email says, right? No, right? I write them differently every time. So there are a couple things I'm trying to do in this email. And this is a sample first email that might come up from a mission counselor. One is I got to keep it short. 2, I got to have a direct action. What I'm asking the person to do with an email so they actually read it and want to respond. So it's not muddied up with all these different things. You got to do your FAFSA, you got to apply, you got to blah, 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 blah. All right? So I'm trying to do a couple of things. I want to talk to her. If that's what your enrollment plan says, we want to talk or meet with our prospective students, then do that. Go right there. Don't wait 7 emails in when they've already started to tune you out. All right? I'm touching base with her on something that might connect with her. And second, it's got to be, or finally, it should be short. 125 words or less. That's it. That's the best practice. 125 or less. It's longer than that, it's too long. That's a stat, by the way. I got that from a company called HubSpot. 125 or less. That's what gets best conversion. Okay. This might be an email I sent to her 3 days later. Amber, thanks for chatting yesterday. 2 days later, I guess. Thanks for chatting yesterday. I referenced our scholarship alerts to help you find additional potential funding to afford college. If you sign up, we'll alert you to upcoming deadlines for scholarships for students. We can even send those alerts to you in the form of a text. Talk soon. Now, that obviously requires that you have a scholarship thing. So one of the things I have done with a couple of schools is we do a lot of research and find not just the scholarships that the institution provides, but try to identify other scholarships in the area. And there's a couple reasons I want to do this. A, everybody loves to talk about scholarships. It's going to be something of interest to students. It's something I can offer online that they can sign up for as a lead generation option. Local scholarship opportunities, because they're not just scholarships for my institution, it's scholarships out there in the community. Second, if I really want to have a longer persona type, so I want to take this short sentence on Amber and expand it, I need to know a little bit more about her, and I don't want to just depend on the application for that. But if I have her sign up for a scholarship alert, I can ask her questions that she wouldn't want to answer on an inquiry form. I can ask, what's your marital status? Do you have children? Because these are things that might impact scholarships you're available for. I might ask, what is your expected annual income this year? Things that will help me understand who she is better as I recruit. Does that make sense? Good. Here's an ad. These are some sample ads I got off of Google. Did a search for MBA. I don't know if anybody's schools are up here. I know there's someone here who at least used to work at Westchester. But I did a search. Online or in class, accredited MBA, July 22nd information session. LaSalle, learn about the new one-year MBA program. UMUC, University of Maryland University College. Help boost your career to the next level. That's the closest one to, the third one's the closest one to a persona-based. But I just changed this first one. If I wanted to recruit Amber, are you ready for that promotion at work? We're committed to help. Are you? Period. So as you think about how you insert those, a lot of schools are using companies, maybe a company like Education Dynamics, to help with their online campaigns. If you can provide your company your persona types, then they can really start to customize the content for their ads. I don't have the data in front of me. I was just reading about it on the plane out here yesterday. Yesterday. Had a red-eye Tuesday. I forget what day it is at this point. That was talking about the reasons why people block ads and the types of ads that they find most annoying. They're growing. The annoyance of these types of ads are growing. Pop-ups are obviously the worst. Here's a sample ad for Amber that you might put into a print publication, or if you want a banner ad. Now, obviously, if you're not looking for that promotion or you're not at the glass ceiling at your work, it's not going to matter to you. So that's part of the things with personas. But it might hit home a little more than the stuff we have out there right now. A couple of years ago, I was driving with my wife and my daughters. We were going to the Chesapeake to hang out with some friends that had a house for the week. And we were going for a long weekend, and it was late July. And we have to drive through Philadelphia. I lived about an hour west of Philadelphia. And we have to drive through Philly to get there. And it was a moment that will stick with me for at least as long as I am consulting in the higher ed space or working in higher ed. It was a 3-minute stretch. I don't know if anybody's ever familiar with Philly, but there's a Highway 202. It's going to help get me to Delaware. And it's a 3-minute stretch. I'm going through, and there are lots of billboards. And we're listening, for a reason, we weren't listening to satellite radio. We had on the regular radio station. And it went to commercial break. And every ad in that commercial break was a different college. I don't know why they didn't catch this. And every billboard was of a university. And you couldn't have, if you take the name out of those ads and the names out of those billboards, you wouldn't have known whose was whose. It was just the same. You could just rotate them. They were all saying the same thing. Here's a picture of a student. Here's the 40 things that we can do for you. The exact same things. And if I'm a school and I'm trying to get my point across, how are you getting across when I've got a billboard, 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 and go down a block, billboard, billboard, and they're all for college universities, all saying the same thing. And the radio ads are all saying the same thing. And on top of it, the radio ads, you can do roll of us a day. Just like, how fast can I change that channel? Of course, I didn't because it was higher ed and I wanted to hear it. My wife knew. Let's keep it there. It's the same. I've got to find a way that helps connect with someone. Personas. How do you do it? You got to find out what information you have. You got to find out what information you need. So you might have questions in inquiry form that start asking about motivation. If you don't, you got to start finding it. When are you going to find it? If you want to build on motivation, when are you going to begin collecting that data? Because you can't really identify and create a persona if you don't have the data. So at one point, you're going to kind of collect it. Once you have the data and you can identify and start bucketing out your types of motivations, I did focus groups after I had my initial buckets. I said focus groups. That's a strong term. I went to cohorts. We had a cohort model, so I would go into the cohort 15 minutes before. I would send them an email, hey, I'm going to stop by and see you 15 minutes before class starts. I just want to ask a couple of questions. So I just used them as a focus group. They didn't self-select. And I went to one for each of our 7 locations. Then you've got to either create new or modify your current communication plans. So I'm going to pull emails out and insert new emails in. So I've actually, with one school, we were implementing a CRM and they wanted to do the personas at the same time as CRM. And anytime I'm doing a CRM implementation, one of the things I do is whether you're switching from one CRM to another or you're launching your very first one, I say I want to see every letter and every email that you have that you want to keep. And we're going to rewrite every single one of them. I don't care if it's a letter now and it's going to stay a letter, we're going to rewrite it. We have to, obviously, if it's going to be persona-based. But even if you don't do personas, we need to rewrite it. And then you have to assess performance. It's obvious, right? We always talk about assessment, right? When you are launching personas, initially, however you're using to collect, have an other option because you may find you've missed a persona type. And if you find that that other option is a too large percentage of your inquiry submissions, you know you've missed something and you need to go back and try to find it. Because then if someone does select other and you've got segmented communications based on persona type, then you know you have to have something that's more common that's not going to be too persona based and ignore someone. As you're creating your personas, everybody likes to have these nice long ones if you have them. But the longer your persona is, the more detailed it's going to be, and the more detailed it is, the more likely you find that someone doesn't fit it perfectly. We're not trying to have perfect matches, but the more detailed you go, the more others, people who are listed as other, you'll find. So when you're starting out, I like to start with just those first sentences. You can have Amber's as a long one, but what might the short one be? And start basic. Don't try to start with 20 persona types. And if it's a non-trad program or a post-traditional program, then 4 or 5 probably will cover it all. Now, you might find you've got 13 different grad programs. Well, you might have 3 persona types for each of them, and there might be some similarities between them. That's fine, but keep that in mind. If you segment by major, then have persona types for those majors. You might have what is ambitious Amber as an MED person versus an MBA person versus an MSN. So when I say start basic, what does that mean? You might just have a few emails going out. You might have a couple of ads that you're testing and trying based around those personas once you have them developed. Intermediate, you'll do that and you're going to add a couple of things. You might start developing an offer or a trigger like the scholarship alerts or something like that that you might offer just for. You might have, so we've got Amber who wants the promotion. We might have target all of our ambitious Amber people and do an interview night, practice for an interview for a job. We're going to have some of our faculty and other adjuncts who are hiring managers giving practice interviews. Sign up to attend. That's what I mean by basic and intermediate. Advanced, I might have multiple types of offers like that. I might have resume nights. I might have job interview nights. I might have networking nights. Different things that might engage people. Scholarship lists would be a must. If you have, now technology might limit a good number of you. It depends on the technology you have on campus. Maybe you can do social monitoring. The CRM I use for my company, if you're in my database and you're also online socially, I can search and find you and it can track what you're saying socially on a screen. I can import that into your record if I want. Because then you know what they're talking about. And that's more on the recruitment side, right? You can see who's saying, signed up to go to so-and-so's recruitment night. Or when someone's frustrated and they send out a tweet, another interview down, waiting for the next one. Okay, have you seen our interview night? Does that make sense? Questions? I try to save time for questions. Yes, Sherry, drill me. What do we got?
Notice that Albright, just using them as an example, uses actual pictures of people saying
Yes.
things.
Yep.
So this is
They're real people saying real things.
right, and this is what you're talking about.
Yep.
What do you do? I don't think my
Yeah, he's not.
What do you do when you have someone in, not in upper management that does not want to see a picture of a person because they think, well, everybody won't identify with that person, so we can't have any people.
Well, it's not, so, and he's got a valid point, but we're not drilling down that deeply with that person. So for the faces that we used, or the people that we used, I had a list that might be 40 people long for 5, and because I wanted to change every 18 months, right? So I wanted to be representative of my motivation, of my locations, of my diverse group of students, gender, parents. And so I had a list. So someone's been on there for 18 months. I'm pulling Rob off. What are my other 4 look like? I don't need one just like Rob, but if I'm going to pull Rob off, when does someone else rotate off? And so I have a male and a female rotating off. I might need another male or female. What's my mix look like? Try to have, generally for 5, I usually have 3 females and 2 males when I can. What was Rob's story? And what was Susan's story? And be sure that I'm filling that in. But then there's other things I'm looking at. So this is where I would put on, my undergrad was in theater. And this is where I put on my acting, directing hat. And I want you, and this is subtle, but it's important. Are they going to freeze up on camera? Are they comfortable standing in a booth if I don't use a camera? But a lot of times we did an interview with them and we recorded it. I'm not in the picture. I ask them questions so we can capture their testimonials if we want to put that in a TV spot. If I want to take that audio recording and put it online, or have a radio spot where I can pull a quote. If you're not good at it, if you haven't done it, then you might need a third party to do it for you. A marketing team might come and help you. So I've got to record that. So they've got to be comfortable talking in front of that, because they're not, then you can't use the audio and video. You might be able to type it up, but you can't use the audio and video, and it's a waste. So that's why I have 40 people long to see who I can plug in. And I start by looking at someone, reading those applications, seeing those as like, we got a hold on this person. But I want them also to be in the program for a year, so I know that they are going to persist and that they're going to continue to have successful things to say. I don't tell them they're on my list, and that's kind of how the way I did. So when I'm picking 5, you're not just picking a single person. That's important. So you talk to, because I know who you're talking about. You're a marketing person. So we're not just talking one person, and we're not going to put something that specific in there. We're going to pull stuff out. So a 45-minute interview may have one 30-second spot that comes from it. That's okay. I can use the other material other places, but today's world of marketing, and he should understand this, I'm pretty certain he will, we need real. That's what works today, is real and what is authentic. You look at the best TV shows that people gravitate to the most. I mean, even something like The Office. It felt more real because we removed the studio audience that laughed, and because it was like a camera that moved around and followed them everywhere they went, so it felt real. We forget very often that, at some point, if it was a real reality show, like, what was the purpose of a reality show? But it just feels that real. It is that authentic. And that's what we have to get across that's engaging. And that's why I started the process of revamping our marketing, is because I was tired of a radio DJ being our voice on the radio. Because I didn't think that this represented what we were. Hated it. All right? And so that's why I use real people. John and I just need to sit down and have a talk. We can push that, because that's what is effective. There's no data out there that says that fake stuff. We want something real. And I don't need data for that. You can ask any room like this, which works. You can tell in a billboard what's stock photo and what's not. I wanted people to look real, but they do have to be photogenic, right, to an extent. Yes?
I think the other thing is just test it in your digital. If that image isn't working and you're able to prove it versus another one,
Yep.
then that's an opinion, it doesn't matter.
Yep. Yeah.
I did have a kind of a question on the idea of the persona. We really involved, because director of marketing, I have my marketing eyes out, but I really involved my faculty members who, not necessarily program chairs who only get to hear from a few of them, but the ones that are like on the phone with the students constantly. That really helped adapt marketing to reality. So I don't know your thoughts, if there's another department or another, who should be involved in the creation of the personas.
Faculty are usually at the input, not the evaluation necessarily after. If they have an eye or an interest in marketing, not in what's real and what's not, but in marketing specific, because marketing is there to help generate leads, not beyond that. We've got to get leads, right? So did I talk with faculty about this? They saw it before it went out in some meetings. I didn't have like a focus group or sit down. So I didn't, but if you have faculty that want to be involved and who are on the front lines with the students, a good array of students, then yes. And you know what, I did go to faculty because sometimes I did always ask, do you have people in mind you think would be good for the campaign? Because once it went out and they saw their student, they did like that. And so, and when they would acknowledge me, oh, I saw Jessica, I saw Jess, right? And by the way, I'll just say Jess just reached out to me to find who my replacement was because she's been graduated for a while and she's now the VP of Human Resources at some major pharmaceutical company in Philadelphia. She wants to get, I've updated my story, I want to tell you. And this is 7 years after she was used and she's still like staying in touch. You talk about buy-in and keeping alum active and engaged. I can't tell you how many people she has referred to us, including her husband. But let's go beyond that. There are many others like that. So, yeah. So faculty, they did actually participate some in there. Yeah. Other departments, admissions is always critical. If you're in marketing specific, admissions has to do it. And once we did the first campaign, most of the admissions reps were like, because they wanted their locations covered, like, oh, who are we going to put up for? Here's who I think. Yes, right? And so I have like, I'll be sure that they're on the list, make sure they fit. And then they were always, oh, why didn't you pick so-and-so? Well, because you already have somebody. Pottstown doesn't have anybody covered. You can't have 3 people for Lancaster.
We're early kind of in the infancy of having a new approach to enrollment and collecting some of that data. And I'm not a very patient person and I'm new in my role. So is it feasible to gather some of that data? You talked about focus groups. I've been thinking about doing an alumni and student advisory kind of committee. Is it feasible that I could collect some of that persona data instead of waiting for 6 months?
In mass, you won't be able to necessarily, right? You just don't want to, the further you go down the road of doing it and start, oh, I like this, and come up, you might spend the time kind of creating a persona type, and then when you see the data 6 months later, realize it's not a true persona type. And so you just have to be very careful. If you want to start collecting some ideas and data for that, and getting names of potential people that might fit, that's another important piece, and you might get that, because you do want some alum in there. But I wouldn't try to implement and launch a whole lot until I see some data, right? If you use a third-party marketing company, you can get them started with a plan and some ideas and concepts of ads, and that you give them the names for the interviews later. Yeah. Good question. Other questions? How are we doing on time? It's 10:59. Other questions before we depart? If not, thank you for joining me this morning. If you want a copy of the recording, drop me your card and I'll send them out by Monday. I'm taking Friday off. Thank you.